It starts with a sound, a metallic snarl that feels less like an engine and more like a living thing gasping for air and fury. You can almost see it. A blur carving through corners, rear tire trembling under impossible power, electronics barely holding back chaos. It's the story of a machine built not to follow rules, but to rewrite them. A moment when technology and instinct fused into something that made even seasoned racers question what was possible. Every throttle twist was a gamble, every victory, a statement that engineering could bend physics for just long enough to win. But behind that triumph lay politics, risk, and a radical idea that could have easily gone wrong. Before it became legend, it was a question mark, a what if that might have changed everything. Today, we trace that question to its answer, exploring how one audacious experiment defined an entire generation of racing. If you love deep dives into the machines that reshaped performance history, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us which icon should be next. The Honda RC211V arrived at a crossroads in motorcycle history, when the two-stroke titans of the 1990s were giving way to the new four-stroke formula that would define the MotoGP era. In 2002, Honda's engineers unveiled this radical machine as the spearhead of their return to absolute dominance. The RC211V was not a cautious step forward. It was a full-blown leap into the unknown. Instead of copying conventional inline-4 engines, Honda developed a unique V5 configuration, 5 cylinders arranged in a compact, slightly canted layout that offered both explosive power and razor-edge control. At a glance, it seemed overcomplicated, but to Honda, it was the purest expression of balance between output and stability. Inside that narrow frame lived roughly 990 cubic centimeters of chaos tamed by precision, producing over 200 horsepower and revving to the stratosphere. The development brief was simple in wording but monumental in ambition. Build a machine that would restore. Honda's supremacy after years of Yamaha and Suzuki pressure in the closing 500cc two-stroke era. The philosophy behind the RC211V began with the idea that race bikes should not just be fast in a straight line but adaptable across tracks and riders. Honda had studied the quirks of their NSR 500, its sudden power band, its intimidating handling, and set out to eliminate every weakness. The RC211V's V5 layout provided smoother torque delivery, allowing riders to manage power mid-corner without the violent kick of the old two-strokes. A sophisticated electronics package, including early traction control, worked behind the scenes to translate human input into mechanical perfection. Even the aluminum twin-spar frame was meticulously designed to be both stiff and communicative, giving riders feedback without punishing them for every aggressive input. But the story wasn't just about hardware. It was about culture. Within Honda's racing division, pride ran deep. The RC211V wasn't simply a project, it was a statement of intent from a company that viewed competition as its truest form of expression. Engineers, designers, and test riders operated almost as a secret society, iterating in silence, feeding data through late nights, and building prototypes that were never meant to be seen by the public. Each part was reimagined. The gearbox for shorter ratios, the throttle response for linearity, even the fuel injection system to optimize for unpredictable track conditions. When the first prototypes rolled onto testing circuits, they didn't just impress, they stunned. Test riders reported an immediate sense of control, describing it as the first time a four-stroke had felt as light and willing as a two-stroke without any of the volatility. The decision to create a 990cc monster wasn't purely about performance, it was about rewriting Honda's identity in the modern age. The company had mastered efficiency, reliability, and balance in production bikes, but the RC211V was something else entirely. It was built to push limits that normal riders would never approach. The engineers had to ensure the V5's central cylinder banks wouldn't overheat, and the entire cooling system became a labyrinth of innovation. Titanium valves, magnesium covers, carbon fiber intake ducts, every gram was contested territory. The goal wasn't just speed, it was harmony. For the riders, the RC211V offered something unprecedented: confidence. Unlike the frantic unpredictability of the old 500cc machines, this new four-stroke felt composed, almost serene, until the throttle opened fully and all hell broke loose. The power came on smooth, then surged into an addictive crescendo, letting skilled riders exploit every ounce without fear of sudden highsides. Valentino Rossi, the young Italian prodigy already known for his charisma and precision, quickly became the perfect match for the RC211V's character. His ability to dance with the machine rather than wrestle it created an unstoppable pairing that would dominate MotoGP's early 2000s landscape. But behind that dominance was a deeper layer of competition, Honda's internal drive to prove that engineering genius could outthink brute power. The RC211V wasn't the lightest bike on the grid, nor the simplest, but it carried an aura of inevitability. From its first race, it projected control. Other manufacturers watched in disbelief as Honda combined monstrous acceleration with handling so neutral that riders could brake later, lean deeper, and exit sooner. The RC211V didn't merely participate in MotoGP, it redefined the rhythm of racing. In its early testing phases, engineers obsessed over engine placement to achieve near-perfect mass centralization. They played with crankshaft weights and counterbalancing, fine-tuning vibrations to deliver a silky yet visceral feel. Aerodynamics were sculpted not just for top speed, but for stability under extreme lean angles. Even the exhaust layout, a set of 5 pipes merging into a meticulously tuned configuration, was crafted to deliver both performance and that unmistakable howl that would become the soundtrack of an era. The result was a motorcycle that didn't just look fast, it radiated purpose. When it finally debuted in the 2002 season, the RC211V didn't simply win, it demolished. Race after race, it proved the concept's genius, validating every sleepless night in Honda's design centers. Yet those victories didn't come easy. Balancing a high-strung V5 engine was a maintenance challenge, and fine-tuning the electronics required constant feedback from riders. Every detail mattered. Fuel mapping could make or break a weekend. Suspension settings dictated whether a circuit favored fluid rhythm or brutal acceleration. The RC211V thrived in both extremes. Culturally, it was a phenomenon. The machine captured the imagination of fans worldwide, becoming a symbol of what Honda could achieve when it unleashed its full creative force. Enthusiasts marveled at its precision engineering, while rivals scrambled to decode its success. Underneath that polished surface, though, was relentless evolution. Honda never stopped refining. Every few races, subtle updates appeared. New swing arms, tweaked injection systems, lighter components. It was a living organism, adapting to survive in the fiercest competition on Earth. As the RC211V's legend grew, it changed not only Honda's image, but MotoGP's trajectory. The shift from 2 strokes to 4 strokes wasn't just mechanical, it reshaped racing philosophy. Riders had to learn new braking techniques, different throttle management, and a deeper respect for electronics. In many ways, the RC211V became the first modern superbike prototype, a blueprint for how future machines would merge mechanical power with digital intelligence. By the end of its development cycle, the RC211V had done what few machines ever could: unite fans, engineers, and riders in awe. It was proof that courage and design could pay off spectacularly. But as the seasons wore on and regulations tightened, the dominance of this machine faced new challenges. The story of how rivals responded and how Honda adapted to keep its edge is where the next chapter truly begins, leading us into segment 2. When the Honda RC211V entered its second season, its shadow stretched across every pit lane in MotoGP. Rivals had seen what it could do in 2002, now they were desperate to catch it. The RC211V's blend of power and poise seemed almost unfair, and competitors accused Honda of having built not just a better motorcycle, but a better idea of what a racing machine could be. As the 2003 season unfolded, the RC211V became a symbol of technical superiority and the subject of obsession in every engineering meeting across the paddock. The RC211V was at the heart of a storm that defined early 2000s MotoGP. Valentino Rossi's dominance aboard it looked effortless, yet beneath the spectacle lay a brutal truth. The bike demanded absolute precision. Its power delivery was smooth but relentless. A fraction of hesitation could mean running wide or losing traction at speeds few riders dared sustain. Rossi, with his signature blend of aggression and artistry, made the RC211V look graceful, a ballet of carbon, metal, and flesh moving as one. His victories weren't just wins. They were demonstrations that Honda's creation had transcended conventional design philosophy. However, dominance breeds both admiration and resentment. Other manufacturers pushed back hard. Yamaha and Ducati accelerated their development programs, introducing lighter frames, advanced electronics, and high-revving engines to close the gap. The RC211V forced the entire grid into a technological arms race. Even mid-tier teams began integrating telemetry and sensor packages once reserved for factory efforts. MotoGP transformed almost overnight from raw racing to a high-tech battle of precision and data. In the United States, the RC211V's success created a halo effect for Honda's entire motorcycle lineup. American fans who watched Rossi carve through corners every Sunday flocked to dealerships, inspired by the promise of that same engineering DNA. The RC211V became a cultural bridge, linking track performance with showroom aspirations. It made the term MotoGP technology a marketing weapon. The idea that a road-going bike could share its genes with the RC211V changed how enthusiasts viewed Honda, no longer just reliable, but thrillingly ambitious. Yet the real drama was still unfolding behind closed doors. As Rossi's victories piled up, questions surfaced. Was it the man or the machine? Inside Honda, the atmosphere grew tense. Rossi's camp felt the factory wasn't giving him enough input on development decisions, while Honda's engineers believed their technology was the real star. The conflict came to a head at the end of 2003, when Rossi made the unthinkable move, leaving Honda for Yamaha. It was a shockwave that split the MotoGP world in half. The RC211V suddenly faced its biggest test, proving it could win without Rossi. In 2004, Honda's lineup included several capable riders, but none could match the seamless harmony that Rossi had achieved. To make matters worse, Rossi immediately won the championship on a Yamaha, a rival machine he helped develop from scratch. It was as if the magician had taken his spellbook and left the wand behind. For Honda, it was both a humiliation and a catalyst. In response, the RC211V entered a period of aggressive evolution. Engineers doubled down on refining the V5's output, improving mid-range torque and response. They updated the electronics, experimented with chassis stiffness, and even revised the aerodynamic fairings for stability. Each version of the RC211V became a laboratory of incremental perfection. Riders like Sete Gibernau, Nicky Hayden, and Max Biaggi carried the torch, showing flashes of brilliance that reminded everyone the bike was still a weapon in capable hands. The 2006 season brought redemption. Nicky Hayden, the Kentucky-born racer with dirt track instincts and a humble demeanor, piloted the RC211V to the World Championship. His triumph wasn't about raw dominance, it was about consistency, grit, and teamwork. For American fans, Hayden's victory was monumental, an American on a Honda V5 taking the title against Europe's finest. It cemented the RC211V's status not only as a technological marvel, but as a symbol of global reach, capable of adapting to different riders and styles. Beyond the races, the RC211V's influence spread through the motorcycle industry. Manufacturers across the world studied its layout. The V5 concept inspired design discussions far outside MotoGP. Even though few production bikes adopted the exact configuration, the RC211V's balance of mass centralization, smooth torque, and compact packaging became a lesson for high-performance engineering. In essence, it taught the industry how to extract maximum efficiency from complex architecture. The aftermarket world also felt its pull. Replica liveries, exhaust systems tuned to mimic its sound, and scale models of the RC211V flooded the enthusiast market. For a generation of young riders, the RC211V was more than a race bike. It was a poster dream, a symbol of speed perfected by science. Track day enthusiasts tried to capture its spirit and modified CBRs, while online forums dissected every technical diagram leaked from Honda's archives. Meanwhile, the sport itself evolved around what the RC211V had started. Rules began to tighten, especially regarding displacement and electronics. The 990cc era was thrilling but unsustainable. By 2007, MotoGP would downsize to 800cc machines to curb escalating speeds and costs. The RC211V's reign then was not just dominant, it was finite. That sense of finality gave its story even greater weight. It became the swan song of unrestrained engineering, the last truly wild creation before the era of regulation and control. In hindsight, the RC211V was the bridge between two worlds, the analog brutality of the two-strokes and the digital finesse of modern MotoGP. It brought traction control, engine mapping, and seamless gearboxes to the forefront. Without it, the sophisticated, electronically managed race bikes we see today wouldn't exist. Yet at its heart, the RC211V remained a rider's machine, a tool that demanded respect and rewarded mastery. Its sound became its signature. That 5-cylinder wail, rising and falling with a rhythm unlike any other, echoed across circuits like a war cry. Fans didn't need to see it to know what was coming. They could hear the V5's heartbeat from miles away. For a brief window in racing history, that sound defined what performance meant. By the time regulations forced its retirement, the RC211V had achieved near mythical status. It had rewritten the DNA of racing motorcycles, proven the genius of its creators, and endured beyond the riders who piloted it. The question was no longer whether it was the best, it was how its spirit would survive in the machines that followed. And that leads us to the legacy that made the Honda RC211V unforgettable, a chapter that continues to echo long after the checkered flag, setting the stage for Segment 3. The Dodge Charger Daytona SRT EV now stands at the crossroads of 2 centuries of American performance. The old world of oil and thunder meeting the new one of current and code. By this stage, the Charger Daytona SRT EV isn't just a car. It's a manifesto. It argues that emotion, not combustion, is the true fuel of driving passion. Every decision Dodge made, every sound frequency in the Fratsonic chambered exhaust, every simulated shift in the erupt transmission, every aerodynamic crease of the R-wing serves that thesis. The car was engineered not only to perform, but to matter. Because in an era when silence and software dominate, this EV insists on personality. That's a radical stance in the American muscle lineage. For context, no other major performance icon has taken this bold of a leap yet. Others are phasing out V8s quietly, offering hybrid stopgaps or rebadged electric sedans. Dodge chose confrontation instead, an all-in electric muscle platform that doesn't apologize for its attitude. That defiance defines the Charger Daytona SRT EV's legacy, even before its full release. Culturally, it's already a spark that reignited debate about what power means. And that's essential, because car enthusiasm has always thrived on emotion more than logic. When early videos surfaced of the Daytona's exhaust roaring through parking garages, the reaction said everything. Some mocked it as fake, others called it genius. But every reaction proved Dodge's point. The car made people feel. That's rare in the EV space. The Charger Daytona SRT EV demonstrates that authenticity isn't about fuel type. It's about intention. Dodge knew its future couldn't be a sterile reinvention, it had to be an evolution with swagger. The brand built an identity around irreverence, and somehow, this EV keeps that alive through design confidence and mechanical theater. On the road, the experience underlines that continuity. The acceleration is instantaneous, but the feedback loop, the noise, the push, the sensation of simulated gears, anchors you to something familiar. That's the genius of the Charger Daytona. It doesn't erase muscle car DNA, it reprograms it. And in doing so, it becomes a blueprint for others. Every automaker transitioning to EVs faces the same dilemma. How do you keep soul in a system built for silence? Dodge's answer is provocative. Don't run from emotion. Engineer it. That concept could reshape not just how muscle cars evolve, but how enthusiasts connect to machines in general. The Daytona's arrival means we're entering an era when electric cars no longer need to pretend to be appliances. They can have character, flaws, attitude. They can snarl digitally, accelerate brutally, and still make your heart race. That might be the most important impact of the Charger Daytona SRT EV. Not just as a product, but as proof of emotional design in a post-petrol world. Even its name carries symbolic weight. Daytona references speed records and racing victories. Charger invokes rebellion and force. Pairing those with EV is more than marketing. It's an act of fusion, a message that technology and tradition can coexist. The payoff becomes clear when you think generationally. The Charger Daytona SRT EV ensures that younger enthusiasts, those who may never hear a supercharged V8, still have something visceral to connect with. It gives them an icon to claim, a bridge between eras. In a sense, Dodge isn't just preserving its own legacy, it's preserving the emotional vocabulary of driving itself. Because if cars lose their ability to move us, they lose their purpose. The Charger Daytona SRT EV refuses to let that happen. It's not perfect. Range, weight, and charging infrastructure still shape the EV experience. But perfection isn't what defines icons, boldness does. And this car has it in spades. The Charger Daytona is raw ambition on 4 wheels, proving that innovation can still wear muscle. The industry is watching closely. If Dodge succeeds, the path forward for electric performance will look very different. If it falters, the lesson will be equally valuable. Emotion alone can't overcome practicality. Either way, the Charger Daytona SRT EV becomes the experiment that changes the equation. For drivers, the impact goes deeper. The car asks us to question what we truly love about performance: the sound, the speed, or the sensation of being connected to power. In that conversation, Dodge has already won something priceless: attention, curiosity, and belief. The Charger Daytona SRT EV doesn't mourn the end of an era. It celebrates the beginning of a new one, with every surge of current echoing like the heartbeat of American innovation. And as this machine hits roads across the country, the ultimate judgment won't come from spec sheets or social media takes. It will come from the grin that spreads the first time someone floors it and realizes that muscle didn't die. It evolved. The Honda RC211V remains one of the most significant motorcycles ever built, a rare convergence of creativity, courage, and engineering mastery that changed MotoGP and, by extension, global motorcycle culture. For American fans, its story carries special resonance. It wasn't just a Japanese masterpiece. It was the machine that carried Kentucky's Nicky Hayden to a world title and proved that heart and discipline could meet technology at the highest level. 2 decades later, the RC211V still represents a moment when racing was raw, experimental, and audaciously human. For anyone considering the RC211V's legacy in practical terms, owning one isn't realistic. Its few surviving examples are factory prototypes and priceless collector items. But the spirit of the RC211V lives on in every high-end Honda sport bike that followed. The CBR 1000RR and later Fireblade generations inherited its philosophy of mass centralization and intuitive control, even if the hardware evolved. In the US market, that influence shows up in road bikes that feel both approachable and precise, machines that translate race-born innovation into everyday confidence. Reliability has always been a Honda hallmark, and while the RC211V was a purpose-built race machine requiring constant maintenance, its lessons in durability and performance balance filtered down into consumer models. That trickle-down effect remains one of its greatest contributions. Riders benefit from technology that once lived only in MotoGP garages: traction control algorithms, ride-by-wire throttle systems, and frame designs rooted in RC211V data. Even modern electronics, such as Honda's cornering ABS and torquey control systems, trace conceptual lineage back to the V5 era. In terms of collectability, anything connected to the RC211V, replica liveries, homologation specials, signed fairings, continues to climb in value. Its status as the last 99cc monster before MotoGP's downsizing gives it a kind of romantic finality. It represents the peak before restraint, the last moment when engineers could still chase unfiltered performance without regulation's tight leash. That makes its story as much about timing as technology. For enthusiasts who chase the RC211V feeling, the closest modern experience might come from Honda's RC213VS, the street-legal adaptation inspired by its successor. It carries the same precision and intensity that defined the V5 era, albeit in a refined, road-compliant form. But even then, it's not quite the same. Nothing else sounds, feels, or behaves like the original V5, a configuration so distinct that its memory alone can quicken the pulse of anyone who ever heard it scream down a straight. The RC211V also left a lasting imprint on Honda's internal culture. It proved that risk-taking could yield results worthy of reverence. That lesson continues to guide Honda's racing and performance divisions today, from MotoGP to superbike and endurance racing. Every modern Honda competition machine carries an echo of that same ambition: to build something the world has never seen before and dare others to follow. Ultimately, what made the Honda RC211V special wasn't just speed or power, it was purpose. Every component existed for one reason: to make the rider unstoppable. That purity of intent resonates long after its retirement. In a sport where trends change yearly and technology evolves monthly, the RC211V endures because it captured something timeless: the pursuit of perfection without compromise. For viewers, whether you're a rider, an engineer, or just someone who appreciates what human ingenuity can create under pressure, the RC211V's story is a reminder that innovation often requires defiance. It asks for risk, demands obsession, and rewards those willing to go beyond the ordinary. That's why, even in today's era of controlled power and digital telemetry, the legend of the RC211V still feels alive, because it was built by people who believed that motorcycles could be art, science, and emotion all at once. And that's the true legacy of Honda's RC211V, a machine that didn't just win races, but changed what victory meant. It made MotoGP faster, smarter, and infinitely more ambitious. Its sound may be gone from the track, but its echo remains in every heart that ever thrilled to that impossible V5 roar. Proof that some machines don't just live in history, they define it.